it is great. I mean, I love just, the cost of living is so much cheaper, the cost of food. So we can kind of just pop out in the morning and we just go to a co-working space and you just meet so many other techies.
Welcome back to another episode of the Open Source Cafe, and today we are answering one of the most asked questions in our community. How do you get started with freelancing? What is freelancing? How do you travel while working remotely, get remote clients, all these things, right? So before we get started, Eddie, welcome back to the channel. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me again.
And for those of you who don't know Eddie is a great open source and great human being as well. Eddie has the EddieHub community where they're promoting open source. And if you are the one who is looking to start with open source, make sure to check out the links in the description. Eddie also has a great YouTube channel focused around open source and freelancing. So you can get more tips apart from this podcast on to Eddie's channel. But yeah, Eddie, would you like to tell our viewers a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So my background is I was a full stack dev for over 15 years, and I've been freelancing for over 10 years, in open source over 10 years. And more recently, I've gone digital nomad and traveling around the world, currently in sunny, hot Bali for the last 3 months and got 3 more months here. And I love what I do. And as you mentioned, the EddieHub community, thank you so much. We really enjoy geeking out with each other and supporting each other. The members there are amazing. So a big shout out to the EddieHub members. We really believe collaboration first, code second. I really believe that, and it's important for whatever field people are in. If they're in, freelancing in testing, freelancing in development, it's important to do collaboration and communication because that's a skill that is transferable. And even if you're the only person on the project, you still need to work with other people, product owner, and so forth. So your communication, collaboration skills are super important, which is where open source comes in. And I want to sprinkle that through the conversation today. I'm really excited to dig deeper into that.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. And we're going to talk about like, your journey as a freelancer. Can you maybe share how you got started and what sort of freelancing are you doing like right now, what you have experience with?
Sure. So when I started, like I said, over 10 years ago, I actually got found and discovered from some of my open source work. Someone said, hey, can you come work on this project? A big company in the UK, the BBC, a lot of people heard of it. And they said, we love what you're doing. We'd love for you to come and do the same for our project. Theirs wasn't open source at the time, but they could see what I could do, right? I really believe in show people what you can do rather than tell people. And I went and spoke with them, and it just opened my eyes to so many things. I actually didn't get that role. I can't remember, I think timing was wrong. I had a notice period of my full-time job of a month, and they wanted someone really quickly. But it opened my eyes to what was available out there. And then I started looking for more freelancing kind of gigs. And, the rest is history. My life changed from that. I could work really hard if I wanted to save for a car or a house or whatever it was. Or if I wanted to take a bit of downtime, do more community work, do more open source, I could then reduce my hours and work less, I suppose. So I love the flexibility. I love choosing what technology I want to work with, what projects I want to work. I love choosing what projects I want to work with, what technologies I want to work with. Having that ability, having that power and control was amazing. And even now I get to choose which clients I get to work with, which is really awesome. And I want that for all of you who are watching as well.
Yeah. And how does it compare to like a regular job, which is totally fine, by the way. I am a developer advocate at Civo, but I do like remote work. So sort of like, ties in pretty well with that. But speaking of like, so it's also, I believe like you would agree on this as well. Depends on person to person. Few folks like the in-office fields. Few folks don't like it. So how does it compare freelancing with a regular contract-based job?
That's a really great question. I think it's important for people to realize that freelancing is great, but there are challenges. And with a permanent job, you do have that regular income, that stability. But there are pros and cons to both sides. So with permanent, like I said, you get the regular income, which is great. But sometimes you can get pigeonholed or you can get a bit bored. Not every place is like that, but just to give an example, it is quite common. That's why I think after kind of 2 years, people sometimes move around to get that variety. Whereas with freelancing, you get to pick that. But you need to find your clients. You need to stand out from the crowd more. Even with being a permanent, if you're changing jobs, you still want to stand out from the crowd more, which is why I keep telling everyone, get active on open source and on GitHub. But with freelancing, I think you need to do it even more because you need to have that pipeline of clients waiting for work, so therefore you're not really out of work too much. You probably need to save a bit more. So if you are out of work, you have got a gap between clients that you're not stressed and worried too much. So I think especially at the beginning of freelancing, it's a little bit more stressful. But when you build up that client base, and then you can kind of almost like move around those handful of clients, because when you finish one project of one client, then you can kind of move on to the next one. And then you kind of almost kind of go around full circle, and you keep going round, and there's people you can contact. So it does start off harder freelancing, but once you get into that rhythm, it's really awesome. And I keep, one piece of advice I tell people is make sure you over deliver on freelancing, under promise and over deliver, and those clients will then come back for more and recommend you to their friends, and that's really, really important.
Amazing. And you shared, like how you got discovered and stuff, but how did you start like on your own? What would you recommend? Like what sort of platforms do you use, to, let's say, first of all, build your portfolio?
So I didn't use any platform when I started, but that was very different. I suppose over 10 years ago, I was quite lucky having someone contact me. But a recommendation I would give to people is definitely have a portfolio and try and show a variety of work. A to-do list app is fine, but then maybe you want a full stack app. Maybe you want a back-end app. Maybe you want a real-time app, something like a chat, to show that you can use different types of technology. It still might all be in JavaScript or in Python or whatever you're using, but using it in different ways. It's not just CRUD all the time. CRUD's important, is a big foundation for all the projects that we will build, but not just that. So that's really important. And in terms of platforms, obviously have a GitHub profile that is active, having good pull requests. And by good, I don't mean they're big with lots of code changes. I mean good as in the description is good, the title is good, the commits are good. This is what people are going to look for. Having good issues. One of the interview tests I always do if I'm hiring for my clients, permanent or freelance, I look at their issues, and I also test them on issues. We talk about an idea for their project or our project, doesn't really matter. I say, great, can you raise an issue for that? I want to see that the issue doesn't say idea one as the title, then with the description, following our discussion, let's go with idea one out of idea three ideas. It's like, well, what was idea one? What are the three ideas? You got to give context for the people that were not there. And so I really think it's important for people to practice that. And the only way they can learn is really getting involved in open source, being a maintainer themselves, so they can also learn too, because they get to see the flip side. I think that's really important. So you need to stand out, have a portfolio, have a public profile on GitHub that is active. Do have your LinkedIn. I don't really support LinkedIn massively, but it is good. People are going to look there. Make sure your history is up to date. I think that is important, but then you need to back it up with the whole open source and GitHub stuff. And in terms of finding work, Upwork is pretty good. I grew my team on Upwork. So I have a full-time video editor for my YouTube channel, and I found Alona through Upwork, and she's been brilliant. I also found developers from there as well to work on my various startup ideas. And their portfolio is really important, and they can link off from Upwork. But I think it's important. Get that feedback. Ask people for feedback. If you've built them a project, ask them for feedback, especially if you've over-delivered and under-promised. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I love how you're tying open source with freelancing as well. And speaking of other tools, like Twitter is also great. You can find so many amazing folks there. But apart from that, there's Fiverr, I believe, as well.
There is. I didn't have as much luck on Fiverr, and when I used it, I found that it was more smaller projects, whereas on Upwork, it was more like monthly renewals, so it kept on going on. So I'm not trying to, bash the platform at all. It's just my experience with it. It seemed to be more, this takes 5 hours, just do it, just get it done. You're almost buying a really specific piece of work, whereas on Upwork, it was more of a developer or tester or whatever it is as a service, and I would just kind of renew every week or every month. So that's why I recommend Upwork over Fiverr. But again, that's my personal experience. I love it that you mentioned Twitter. You're right. Tech Twitter is huge. People need to get involved in the conversation. It's so important because people will then approach all of you watching this. They'll approach you because seeing the way you communicate, the way you collaborate with other people. I think that's really important. You've got to get involved in the conversation and share different types of things on Twitter, right? Share that a bit behind the scenes. if you're working on a client project, I appreciate you can't share maybe the client project details, but say you're working on a client project, take a picture with your laptop. Then you want to share tips as well to show that you're knowledgeable in a certain area. So even if it's something you've learned that day, do share that. And on that
Like
note,
this video, you can create a thread of this video and you can share what you learned.
exactly. I'll always give credit, but definitely do that. And on that note, Kunal, let's give us a wave. Let's do a quick photo behind the scenes. Sorry, I'm messing up your video, but for Twitter. Perfect.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
You can cut that out.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it in. Yeah. You all can also take a screenshot and share about it.
Yes, and tag us. And
All right.
if you add value, so sorry, Kunal, I want to take a little sidestep. It's all about adding value with open source, with freelancing. It's important to add value. So if you take a screenshot of this and link back to this on Kunal's channel and tag Kunal and me, we'll like it. I promise you we'll like it. We probably won't reshare it. But if you add value to it by saying, I learned point 1, 2, and 3, then now we want to reshare it with our community because you've added value to the screenshot and the link. Then we're more likely to retweet it. So add value, tag us, and we'll hopefully get you some more followers and awareness on socials as well. So think about always adding value.
I've seen this, a few folks do this. They always set up a thread and they get like 100 likes, 200 likes. So it's good. You're creating value and you're getting recognized. Cool. But I'm going to ask you a question about, freelancing. So when you're picking clients, so deciding how to get paid, what do you think? What are your views on getting paid by the hour or getting paid by the milestone? It's like, if you can, it's a tricky question. So if you can finish the work in like 2 hours, would you be paid, let's say if you're getting paid $20 an hour, 40 bucks, or if you are paid by the hour, then you can stretch that particular thing throughout the day, right? Which does not seem fair to the client, for example, but the client has no idea what's going on. So do you get paid on deliverables or by the hour? Spoiler alert, I get paid on deliverables. But Eddie, what do you think?
That's a really good question. And I think, it could be painful in both directions. Like you said, if it's per hour, the person could kind of stretch it out a bit, but vice versa. Sometimes as techies, we sometimes are over optimistic and then the client could ask questions and change their mind and then just stretch it out that way. And our hourly rate reduces. So hourly rate is a good place to start. I did it for many years and I increased the hourly rate over time. The whole supply and demand, as I became more in demand, I was able to increase my hourly rate. And that worked really well for me for so many years. Whereas more recently, I have moved to a deliverable. So I see how much value my piece of work, my deliverable will add. And that's what I charge. And for me, that works really well. But it really depends, I suppose, on the project and the client. I think it's important to see what works well for both. Ideally, you as the freelancer first, and then you might tweak it slightly for the client. And you could mix it up as well. I've seen people do it for deliverable, and say if people want many iterations, it turns into an hourly rate as well. So you can mix and match. I think starting off with the hourly rate is maybe a bit simpler, and then later on, the deliverable probably makes more sense. And then how much value that you add is really, really important. So have a think about it. I think maybe write it down. So people, if you're watching, come up with an example deliverable and maybe see how many hours you think it will take, because the client's going to want to quote and they're probably going to hold you to that. So yeah, write that down. And then maybe you could package that up in a different way as a deliverable price with a slight buffer in there, very small buffer, but just something just in case. There is different ways you could do it. And I think just practice, one of the things you got to try. And to be honest, some clients are more demanding than others as well. So sometimes you might slightly add a client factor because they're a bit painful. I use client factor because I use a ruder word that I won't include in this video for some clients. But luckily, as you get in all that whole supply and demand, you get to pick your clients. You can I fired some clients recently and I'm sticking with the ones that are more collaborative and I can work better with them because, time is really precious for me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I believe what has been like the case with me, I love all the folks that I worked with because I found them in the open source community. So the platforms Eddie mentioned, like, the platforms he mentioned, can't even remember now. I have never used those. I've just used like Twitter, but you can definitely try it out and see what like works for you. One more question, Eddie. Thanks a lot for sharing all the resources, and we'll make sure we link down in the description below. What's the work-life balance like? In digital nomad, you travel a lot. By the way, we have already answered this question in the digital nomad podcast we did, so I'll link those in the description as well. Make sure you check it out. But yeah, how's it like? How's Bali like?
It is great. I mean, I love just, the cost of living is so much cheaper, the cost of food. So we can kind of just pop out in the morning, and we just go to a co-working space, and you just meet so many other techies, and you can just order some food, and it's really affordable, and you're living really well. But you get to geek out with other people. You're sitting there with your laptop, and there are other people on their laptop. You can see their stickers, and you can see if they're, in content creation, or if they're in tech, or they're in open source. And it's really awesome to grow your network that way. So you can do it online and offline. I think that's so much fun, right? And then you can just kind of, put your stuff in a locker, head to the beach, like 2-minute walk away, go to the beach, have some fun, fly a drone, and then just come back to your villa, chill in the afternoon, and just kind of rinse and repeat. And some days you work harder, some days you don't work as hard. Like yesterday and today, we've been going around the scooter, kind of, beach hopping, and we're going to get a bit more adventurous and do island hopping in the next couple of weeks. And that is great fun. I take my camera and my laptop with me everywhere. I do want to do more kind of behind the scenes. Like when I get tech ideas or tips ideas I want to share with people, I might just use my phone and then just share it. I just created today an EddieHub Twitter community on Twitter. It's a new feature on Twitter. I'm just trying to figure it out. And I'm showing a bit more behind the scenes today on there as well. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm experimenting with that. But on a closing note, if I may, Kunal, I want to say, everyone, having your personal brand, and that word, some people get scared and don't like it, but by you tweeting, by you getting involved in the conversation on Twitter, on GitHub, wherever it is, you are creating your own personal brand. So it's important to show that you are professional. It's okay to disagree with people. I love it when people disagree with me. They disagree with me in a professional way rather than an abusive way. And then you can kind of still agree to disagree, but you're both kind of giving your point of the story. And that's really, really important. And by supporting other people, that shows you're collaborative and you can work within a team. So you can do that on GitHub and on Twitter. Yes, they're different platforms, but the whole principle of that personal brand, the collaboration, the communication is the same on all platforms. And that's really important. I want all of you to have the job or the clients that you want. If you want to go to the office every day, 9 to 5, that's great. And that might change a year later for you. You might then decide, you know what, I want to go freelancing, or vice versa. You might do freelancing for a couple of years and then change to permanent. And that's also fine. But the point is, I want you all to have the choice. I want you to choose. And the only way to do that is really have a personal brand and stand out from the crowd so you can pick what you do. And hopefully you can come join me in Bali. I've got a blue wall behind me, but hopefully you can come join me in Bali and, we can geek out and kind of do mini hackathons at the beach with our laptops or by the pool.
Awesome. Let's plan something. And thanks a lot for joining, Eddie. Really appreciate you giving the time. And folks, make sure you check out the links in the description and take some key takeaways. We kept this video short because there was a lot of resources and knowledge concised. But yeah, appreciate you all giving the time, and we'll see you in the next one. Great day. Bye.